I couldn't see a thing, not the pavement or anything blocking it. That section of the pavement was blanketed in deep shadow. "Are you all right?" Janet asked, standing closer to the curb than I was. "Fine, but there's a hazard here that should be moved. I'm glad it wasn't a brazier so I didn't get burned." Embarrassment always made me sound stuffy or annoyed. I walked back, dragging my right foot, which was on the building side of the pavement. I quickly hit the object. I couldn't make it out in the darkness, the blackout to prevent German bombers from finding London being particularly effective on a cloudy, foggy night, despite the full moon. The blackout was equally effective on the ground too, since it kept Londoners from seeing anything. I bent down and shoved at the object. When it didn't move, I began to feel around gingerly, not certain what disgusting thing I would find. It was a shoe, and a foot was inside it, and the foot was attached to a leg. I breathed in hard from the shock. "We need to hurry, Livy, or we'll be late," came from behind me. It took me a moment to make my brain think of a response, and another to get my mouth to work. "You go ahead, Janet. I need to find a bobby." Something in my tone must have warned her this wasn't an ordinary hazard. "What have you found?" She moved closer to me, peering over my shoulder. Someone injured or dead. Squatting by the building, I didn't have a good view down the road. "Do you see a bobby on Portland Place?" Janet jumped a few steps away from me, before she calmed down enough to try to get a good view up and down the busy thoroughfare. Headlights, even though partially covered, shone enough light on the pavement to illuminate the reflective parts of a bobby's uniform. "Yes, I think so. Yoo-hoo!" she shouted, waving her arms. It was effective. She gained everyone's attention, not just the bobbies. Then she stepped toward me and said, "I don't know how you summon the police in England. I've never had to do it before, not even in America." "You managed it perfectly. Thank you," I told her, noticing a few passers-by coming closer for a look, as if they could see anything in the dense darkness around this building. The bobby joined us in a moment, shining his torch around in front of where Janet and I stood. The torchlight illuminated an angle between two buildings where they met, creating a sort of alcove where dustbins were kept and dried leaves and old newspapers collected. In this alcove, a man sat slumped over slightly, his overcoat twisted around his body and his fedora pressed between his head and the wall. He looked as if he'd been facing the street when he fell backward and landed in the position we found him. I thought possibly he had knocked himself out, but with the light from the torch shining on him, he looked pale, cold, dead. The bobby felt for a pulse, but I could tell he had no luck. He straightened and blew long blasts on his whistle. Janet, her hands over her ears, looked where the torchlight shone on the man's face. In her quiet American accent, she said, "Good heavens, it's Frank Kennedy." Holding his torch with one hand, the constable bent over and moved the man's coat with the other to reveal a knife handle protruding from the man's chest. Blood spilled down his beige sweater. I shuddered and stepped away with a shiver. His blood didn't look as if it had completely dried. He couldn't have been dead long. With a shudder, I realized that meant there was a killer lurking nearby in the darkness.